Hi guys, Anel Tunes here yet again in another mastering tutorial. Today we are looking at multiband compression when mastering. I'm going to be using this particular compressor, multiband compressor, which is the C4 by Waves. It's just my compressor of choice. Like I always say, any other multiband compressor can work. You just have to get the techniques right, just to know which does what, and you just have to understand how your tools really work. Now I'll use this C4 in particular. Now what a multiband compressor is, it separates the recording into several bands depending on the bands that your compressor can offer you, and each brand has a whole set of controls of a singular compressor, which means you can compress that particular band differently from another band. For example, we have on this C4 we have the lower band, we have the lower mid, we have the mid highs, we have the highs here. So we have 4 bands that we're dealing with, but each of these bands here has its own controls. For example, this part here, these are the controls, the compression controls. Here, they're here, here, they're here, and here, they're here. So each band has a full compressor of its own. And these are called crossover points, where each band crosses to the other, where the compressor decides that from this part onwards, these are mid-lows or these are highs. So depending on how you're going to deal with it. For this particular one, this is how we're going to be doing it. So I normally love soloing these particular bands in order to find or to locate the right crossover points. So I'll solo this one here. Right about there, I just want this particular band just to give me the subs and the low end. I don't want any mid highs there. And then on this on the lower mids, I also try to sweep and find the right place. Love me the way I am, take me the way I am. Love me the way I am, take me the way. Right about there, that's where I'll make my crossover, just to curb those mid lows. And then and this very harsh place here, this is where the harsh frequencies come, normally between 1K and 4K, around there. Let's also try to set the crossover point properly. Although that's where most of the articulation takes place of the vocal. And then the highs, of course, automatically that would be the left part, the remaining part. I normally don't want so much singing, so much articulation in the high part, so that I just control the sheen or the shine of the recording. So this is how I'm setting up my my crossover points, and now I'm going to go and deal with individual parts. Okay. So one thing you need to understand is that the more low information you send to the 2 bus or to the mix bus, the quicker your audio will clip when you're trying to give it optimum volume, when you try to limit it very much. So the less mid, low, and low information you send to the 2 bus, the more loud your song will be. Now that's the technique. Most people don't really know that. So first and foremost, we're going to deal with the lower band here, but always avoid trying to compress each band in isolation. Try to compress them all together, because what this compressor does mainly is to level up the song, the recording. What do I mean by leveling up? That if you may find that the song in the mid highs, it's really harsh, and you just want to compress. You don't want to EQ to remove those particular frequencies. You just want to compress them a bit, to calm down a bit whenever they come through, and leave every other part constant. So with a 1 bus compressor, with a single band compressor, you don't have that option. You just have to compress once and for all, and the compressor will compress everything all together. But this time we may just want to compress the mid highs, or just the low end only, or the low and the highs. So we have that option using the master bus, using this multi-band compressor. So let's try and see. Love me the way I am, take me the way I am. like you see, in this song, the snare is so hot, and we have a lot of sub in this particular song, mainly on the kick. So like you see, I've pulled down more of this threshold here on the lower part just to curb that kick, so that whenever it hits, it doesn't come out so much. And if you look closely at this area here where the snare hits so much, whenever the snare hits, it's pulled down just a bit, just to keep it in check with the other frequency.
Love me the way I am, take me the way I am. Love me the way.
Now, the main important thing to understand about a multi-band compressor is the attack and the release. Those ones play a very big role. So in the low end, we have a pretty slow attack because we don't want the compressor to kill the snappiness, the attack of the kick, that hitting fast transient that comes through when the kick hits. We want it to come out so well, because that is what we really want. What we don't want on the kick and the bass is a sustaining effect, that kick whereby the kick hits. That's what we really want to get rid of, because the bass is already playing the music down there. So we just want that kick to hit and leave, hit and leave. So that is why we do a very, very, very slow attack. And on this particular compressor here, range stands for ratio. Okay, just in case you didn't know. And release the same. So we also give it a slow release, because remember, we are dealing with a mix bass. So we have the kick and the bass. So we also don't want the compressor to release so fast. That means the kick will be pulled back a little and the bass will come out so much. So we shall get more of a pumping effect. So we make a slow release, like you can see here. If it was a fast one, it would be like that. So we make it a very slow, as quite of a slow release. We want that, the bass and the kick, just to be contained a little bit.
Love me the way I am, take me the way I am. Love me the way I.
Like you can see, it's really holding up. This yellow line takes long to get up.
Love me the way I am, take me the way I am. Love me the way I am, take me the way I.
I've tried to reduce the attack so that it comes, rather the release, so that it releases kind of.
Love me the way I am, take.
Because it's mainly the kick that we want to control.
Love me the way I am, take me the way I am. Love me the way.
And you realize in this particular part, even if we solo it,
Love me the way I.
it's not harsh.
Love me the way I.
And nothing really is happening so much. And also here, the technique also you need to understand, on the ratio, I've set the ratio all at -8, or the range at -8. On your compressor, it might be ratio at -8 altogether, because I want the same ratio, same gain reduction on all the frequency bands. But in case I feel like something needs to come down a little bit, then I'll play with the attack and the release. But it all has to be the same. Remember, we are mastering. We're not correcting anything here. We're just trying to get a balance between all these frequency bands.
Love me the way I am.
And of course, when it comes to high frequencies, you realize we have a very fast release and also a very fast attack, kind of fast but not very, just to get the snare so quickly, because the frequency range we are dealing with here in this particular case, the high frequencies, audio is so fast, as in our ears perceive the audio so quickly. So that's why we set kind of a fast attack, just to let the heat of the snare come through so quickly, and then every other part is brought down, and then we also we get the release and make it kind of fast, so that it releases it so fast, not to hold it back, because if it holds it back, then we shall lose the snare and the life in that particular frequency. Remember, it's not only the snare that is hitting there are a lot of pads and strings and also the vocal. So we just want to tap the snare and leave everything the same. That's why we make kind of a fast release.
Love me the way I am, take me the way I am. Love me the way I am, take me the way I.
So basically on this song, it was the lower frequencies and the mid highs that we really wanted to control, not really something much. You may find in another recording that it's the highs that you really want to control, or the mid lows. So don't cram, just try to understand. Watch this video again and get that principle, the principles that I've shared here, when to use a low release and a high attack on which frequencies, and which low attacks and fast releases work on the high frequencies. How do you set it up? So you always have to use your ears, and this is something that you can't grasp right now, I know, but the more you listen, the more you practice it, you begin getting it. Give yourself time. And also, I'd like to tell you, if you have a good mix, you may not have to use a multiband compressor. And if you're not yet sure about it, I advise you not to leave it and just use the single band compressor. It will also do you wonders. And then on the limiting part, it could help you do it by itself. Okay, you can also, there are also some presets here that you can pick from. Pick one that really suits your recordings, and yeah, and then you're good to go. That's it for today in this mastering tutorial. Tunes, once again, like this video, subscribe to my channel for more videos, and see you next time in another tutorial.